Welcome back to a year of Final Fantasy, and last time we talked about the Final Fantasy manga in general, and I mentioned at the end of that we hadn't actually talked about all the manga together, and that's actually where this video comes in. Today we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy The Lost Stranger, a completely original manga in the Final Fantasy franchise. This particular manga, The Lost Stranger, was announced during the Final Fantasy 30th anniversary event during January 31st of 2017, and it released in July of 2017, and as of right now it's being published in English as well by Crunchyroll, one of the biggest anime manga streaming sites, which if you're watching this you've probably already heard from it. The manga itself is written by Hazuki Minazi and the artist is Itsuki Kamiya, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced those names. So here's a quick synopsis of the story, and it's incredibly meta, kind of fourth wall breaking stuff. And it's strange, but let's read it and see what we're getting into.
Scoring a job at Square Enix, Sasaki Shoto's dream of producing a Final Fantasy game finally seems to be within his grasp. But after he starts, he quickly discovers the work has nothing to do with his favorite franchise at all. Disillusioned, his enthusiasm for Final Fantasy begins waning despite his sister/co-worker Yuko's attempts to lift his spirits. Their conversation is cut short though when a runaway truck suddenly careens towards the two of them. When Shoto comes to, the first thing he sees is a Moogle? Wait, was that a cure spell? Enter Kobos? Hurled into a Final Fantasy world, unbound to any particular installment, how will an uber fan like Shogo survive?
So essentially, it's the dream of this person, Shogo, that's our main character, to work at Square Enix and then dies, which is super dark, but that's basically just the premise of the manga itself. It's about him being in this world, or I guess better, realm of Final Fantasy. Not World of Final Fantasy, not the video game, just the overall franchise realm. But the realm of Final Fantasy itself has no particular ties to any of the actual games in the franchise. As of now, there have been 3 releases in the series in July, August, and September of 2017. The next chapter seems to be available in the middle of November 2017 on the 13th here in the States. As of now, there doesn't seem to be any end in sight. It's an ongoing manga, which is promising, especially since it's being translated by Crunchyroll. So I guess we can go over the few more prominent characters, kind of get a feel for the world and everything. Of course, we have Shogo Sasaki, who's the main protagonist that's died and been transported into this Final Fantasy realm, like I've said. He's in his early 20s and is what might you call a mega fan of Final Fantasy, boasting basically encyclopedic knowledge about every aspect of the franchise. And of course, at the beginning of the tale, he's mostly a pessimistic character, which is actually really clever on the writer's part, because many Final Fantasy games have started with just such a character, at least their mood. So like Squall or Cloud, that kind of thing. Next we have Yuko Sasaki, who is Shogo's sister and co-worker. She's in her early 20s as well, and she loves Final Fantasy just as much as her brother and works in sales at Square Enix, but has always wanted to make a Final Fantasy game herself as well. Despite her lack of technical knowledge in the realm, she's still wanting to pursue that dream. She often uses Final Fantasy related puns, which, yeah, there's a certain banana-based YouTuber that I know that loves using puns, and yeah, I'm calling you out, Grana. Next, we have Sharu, properly named Sharu Linking Feather, who sports the title of White Mage, and she just loves to heal. Like, oh my god, does she love to heal. It's important to note here that they are going back to the job kind of system, whatever you want to call it, in this manga. Sharu is also the leader of the party that Shogo eventually groups up with. Next up, we have Rei Hagakure, who is a female warrior that prefers the axe. She has incredible respect for Sharu, the White Mage, but is, I don't know, what do you want to call it, curt? Maybe standoffish when it comes to dealing with outsiders, and in this case, it's Shogo. And finally, we have Dustin Volta, and of course, this is the counterpart to Sharu's White Mage, as Dustin is the black mage of the party and is sort of an arbiter of settling down fights between Shogo and Rei, which is actually kind of interesting to me because in Final Fantasy, like the proper games, most of the black mages are usually pretty level-headed and nice, of all things. It's pretty weird though that the most prominent black mage in my mind is from Brian Clevenger's 8-Bit Theater comic, which we've actually talked about, where black mage is basically the most evil incarnation of the universe as a whole, or multiverse. He is just so incredibly evil. It's just something that's always in the back of my mind when talking about black mages. Anyway, I've begun reading this series myself, and I'm not really far enough to give you any kind of good take on the story later on down the road after it gets rolling, but good news for you guys, if you want to go ahead and read it yourself, Crunchyroll has had the first installment out that you can read for completely free. No need to sign up for anything, just head over to Crunchyroll or click the link in the description to take you there, and bam, you can see for yourself if this is something that you'd like to continue with. I definitely will, and I'm hoping for an English print copy maybe, but from what I've seen on the internet, there's been absolutely no mention of it one way or the other. But it's still pretty early in this particular project, this manga project's lifetime. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like my stuff, feel free to like it, or if you hate it, I guess dislike. Doesn't really matter to me because it is interaction. And if you can, maybe, I know it's a lot to ask, share it around, as I am a microscopically tiny channel, and any help means more to me than you can possibly imagine. You really do influence the channel. So until next time, Crystal Warriors, keep on gaming.